Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny, along with Kenny Squared, and this is Sports on the Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, there's only one player in NBA history who has won the Finals MVP playing on a losing team. Do you know who that is?
Oh, I know this because I just saw Jerry West, right?
Jerry West, right? 1969 against the Celtics. Do you know that he went 0 for 6 in the finals against the Celtics? We'll get obviously a lot into Jerry West. Kenny, Aaron Rodgers missing this mandatory camp and nobody knows where he's at. I mean, it is June. Is that a big deal?
Well, I don't know. Part of me says it's a big-ish deal, but you also shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Well, he's what's the word? Mercurial. He's definitely out there. And we're seeing that. All I want to know is just play this year, man, you know? All right, we got a lot to get into. The NBA Finals, Jerry West, Dan Hurley, and a lot going on in baseball as we're heating up in the middle of June. You ready to get this going?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers. Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. And Kenny, it's so much going on in June. We're kind of now, though, winding down where all of the sports kind of came together there for a while. The NHL, I mean, the Florida Panthers look unbeatable. They're doing the same thing to Edmonton that they did to the Rangers, up 2-0 there. And the NBA Finals, let's start there. Game 3 was last night. I watched almost all of the second half. Yeah, I stuck with it, you know, and the fourth quarter, I started to go to bed. And I said, let's see if Dallas can make a run. I mean, I think they were down by 23 going into the fourth quarter, and they made a run. They got to within, I think, 2 or 3 points. I'm sure there was a few times they got it down to 2, but we see that happen so much in the regular season, right? Where a team makes a run and they get close, but they just lose the energy to get over the hump. They missed a couple of key shots. Luka fouled out. Um, is this done now? Are we going to see an 18th title for the Boston Celtics?
I mean, at this point, I'd be surprised if we didn't. I mean, 3-0, we've never seen it, but also just because we've never seen it doesn't mean we will never, ever see it.
Yeah,
Um, but I just feel like the Celtics have just kind of, the Celtics are a weird team because they've really like blown through these NBA playoffs, and it seems like they really have never kicked it up into high gear.
yeah,
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. However, I did hear a good comparison this week. I don't know if I shared. I don't know if I shared this last week, but um, how does this Celtics team compare to, say, the '04 Pistons team, where there's not like a really big name star type of guy, but just like a really, really good team that kind of finally put it all together to pull off a win. Now, I know that was like a bigger upset because the Lakers were clearly the favorites.
yeah,
And like the Celtics did win 64 games, they had one of the highest point differentials, but it also feels like this is a one and done Celtics team. I could be wrong. I mean, this could be the start of a 2 and 3 years, 3 and 5 years type of run. But it
yeah,
just kind of feels like Jason Tatum is their best player, but it doesn't feel like he's really found his shot yet here. And they're still up 3-0.
yeah,
Kristaps Porzingis didn't play last night, and they're still up 3-0.
yeah,
Luka Doncic has been the best player probably on the court, and it seems like no one else has been helping him. Kyrie now is 0-13 against the Celtics since leaving Boston.
well,
Uh,
yeah.
so I don't know. People might be a little superstitious out there, but since he stomped on the logo, he hasn't won a game against Boston. So I don't know.
He shouldn't have stomped on the logo. I think he apologized for that before, and giving the double middle finger to the fans. Um, I want to go back to that comparison with Pistons '04. That's a really good comparison. Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace. I'm forgetting the left-handed forward with the really long arms that played for Kentucky, that famous because LeBron James blocked his shot, one time. But
The Darko? No,
no,
not
wasn't
Darko.
no Darko was the guy chosen in front of Carmelo in the draft. That was a terrible pick. Yeah. Played for the Knicks for like 5 minutes. But anyway, I think it's a good comparison. I want to say this though. I'm not sure if you're doing the same thing, but I definitely underestimated the Celtics defense. And their defense has been unbelievable in this particular series. I mean, they're holding this pretty high scoring team to under 100 points every game. And particularly Jalen Brown's defense has been unbelievable on Kyrie. Kyrie got it going last night. He didn't hit the couple of key shots there towards the end that he should have hit. But I mean, I won't blame him. I'll credit the defense. I think that I guess the question I was going to ask you before I say one more thing, and I think Luca is not quite ready for prime time yet, even though he's a big shot guy. I think he still has to get past what he does with the refs. And I know that a few of his teammates were getting on him about that, but that was a terrible call where he fouled out last night. Um, was it a foul? It might have been, but would you call that on LeBron James? Probably not. Steph Curry, probably not even on Kyrie. Um, I think, Luka doesn't do himself any favors. And I think I said this before the series that if he wants to be the face of the NBA, because he's 25 years old, I mean, it feels like he's been playing the league forever. Um, he's got to stop this nonsense he has with the refs, with going back and forth with the fans. This is why I think Russell Westbrook has taken a couple of steps back these last few years, aside from his declining age. It does no good, period, of going back and forth with fans. And Luca does that, and he's doing that here in the finals, even, you know. So I think that and here's leads to the question I want to ask you, because as I now see them in the finals against such a good, well-rounded team, even without Porzingis, and you and I called that at the beginning that we didn't think Porzingis would last through the tough playoffs, and I'm not saying he's not trying hard. He's just kind of injury prone, and he's got a weird injury. I think you kind of saw they broke it down. It's like it should be inside his bone, and his bone is outside. It's something really odd with him. And I don't think he gets hurt on purpose. He's just a fragile dude. But when I look at Dallas comparing them to the Celtics, I mean, the Celtics are just a much better full team. So I think your comparison with the Pistons is dead on, because they beat a team that had Kobe and Shaq, and this team has Luca and Kyrie, two of the best players in the NBA. What do the Dallas Mavericks need to get back here next year and get over the hump and get to the championship?
Oh, that's a good question. It's weird to say that I feel like the tandem of Luca and Kyrie works,
Yeah.
because we totally did not see that
We
happen.
didn't think
We
it.
talked
We
about
didn't think
that.
it would. Yeah, yeah.
Um, I feel like they need a really solid role player. Like, now, obviously not him, because we want him on the Knicks, but I think a guy like a Dante DiVincenzo,
Hmm.
like a guy that's kind of like a mid-tier type of player
Right.
that you can expect at least, like, he's not going to give you 25 a night, but he can give you a couple of games where you need that. Because right now, like, Kyrie's averaging 14 points a game in these finals, and he is their second option. And it doesn't seem like any of the other guys are working out. So
Yeah.
I think because of that, they need that like third option. Like I think with the Knicks next year, like I know we're talking Dallas, but like
Yeah.
you have Jalen Brunson, you got Julius Randle, and then you have a bunch of guys that could pop off a big number. And I don't know if the Dallas Mavericks have enough of those guys because a lot of times with these playoffs, it's health and also a little bit of luck,
Yeah.
whether it's the right matchups, whether it's someone getting hurt and someone gets knocked out, whatever. So there's no guarantee that you're going to get back here, and you need at least that little extra oomph because you're looking at a team like Denver. Denver could get back, but what if they don't? Like, what if they're like, oh, like we got eliminated right away. We need to like
Yeah.
really do something.
Yeah.
Or Minnesota. Minnesota's going to be better next year.
Yeah.
They've been battle tested.
Yeah.
OKC, they keep talking about trying to take away Hartenstein, but
Yeah.
like if they make a splash, like what if they do a crazy move for Kevin Durant?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of different weapons out there. And I mean, we'll talk Lakers in a second, but you still got LeBron and AD. And somebody's gonna coach that team. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think it's gonna be hard to get back there. So I think they need that third option that you can rely on.
Yeah.
Maybe 18 points a night.
The unfortunate part is they let two of them. Well, one they traded, one they let walk, and that's Brunson and Porzingis. If you had put any one of those guys as the third option with these guys, obviously they didn't know. Kyrie kind of fell into their lap. They didn't really give up a ton for him. And because the Brooklyn just was done, wanted to get him out of here. So but I think you hit it. I think they need one. They need don't hear what I'm not saying. I want Julius Randle actually back on the Knicks, but they need a player like that that is going to take the pressure, off them. I don't know who that is, but because I don't have the free agency list, but there'll be guys that'll want to get traded this year too. Paul George might fit in well with that team. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Two things. There is a minor breaking news story, football related.
Oh,
So
go ahead.
I
Yeah.
want to do that. But
Yeah.
how about Emmanuel Quickly?
On that team, he'd be great. Yeah.
Like, imagine him as a six man. I know he probably wants to be a starter,
Yeah.
but he would be perfect there.
Yeah. See, I'd like to get him back on the Knicks, but I don't think he'll start on the Knicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he will either.
Yeah. Yeah. But he'd be great on that team. Yeah. What's the breaking news?
So this is an extension, NFL quarterback. You want to take a guess?
Prescott?
That's a good guess, but no. The Jags and Trevor Lawrence, 5 years, $275 million, including 200 guaranteed, and $142 million signing bonus.
Brett Favre and Drew Bledsoe opening up the floodgates finally for these quarterbacks are getting paid, man. But I don't know. A team like Jacksonville, does that contract hurt them down the road? I think he's going to perform. I think he'll stay healthy. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a top tier quarterback. But are you going to have enough money to get other players attracted down to Jacksonville? You know what I'm saying? So that's risky. Not as risky as Deshaun Watson's, but that's a little risky. But all the quarterbacks now are well over 100, 200 million. It's amazing, how that changed over the years. But that's interesting breaking news. That really is.
Yeah, that's is that the biggest? I think that might be the biggest contract by a quarterback. I would have to look. Well, actually, Deshaun, I think is more
Chargers
guaranteed.
guy Justin still have the highest one. I think he does. I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is higher. While you're looking that up, I'm gonna talk for you. Who is it? Is it still Justin Herbert?
It was. His was 262 million. So
is Trevor Lawrence now?
Trevor Lawrence is 275.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, they put all the proverbial eggs in one basket there. But listen, go ahead. Yeah.
One playoff game win between the two of them, by the way.
Wow.
One.
Then there's that. Then there's that. Well, I'm curious what Joe Burrow is gonna ask for, when his time comes, which I think it's coming pretty quickly, I'm going to talk for you for a second because we forgot to talk about this last week. And off the air, you had told me your theory about Dan Hurley. You thought that it was a smokescreen. You were sure that he was not going to get the job, that he was going to turn it down. Um, and that kind of gives the Lakers an out um, to now go out and get JJ Redick. Even though there's several, I think, good coaches. I think one, and I don't know if he'd be interested in even coaching ever again, but Jay Wright, to me, if you're going to look at a college coach, still young enough, so even though he's from here, he's from Long Island, sort of still seems like a West Coast guy to me, wears the nice suits and a lot more calmer demeanor on the sidelines than Hurley. Hurley, smells East Coast to me. I think if he does coach in the NBA, I could see him with the Sixers one day, or not, Nick Nurse will be there, I'm sure, for a while, but with one of the I-95 teams, but yeah, I mean, and I didn't say you were crazy at the time, but I was like, now there's a lot of people that started saying, a lot of basketball insiders that started saying the same thing you said last week. So what's your whole take now, a few days later, Dan Hurley turning the job down? I actually listened to, and you go out and listen. I know you're not a Levitard fan, but in these long drives that I've had back and forth, I listened to, they had him as a guest, and he was very candid as to why he turned it down. He said it wasn't money, although some people were saying, that wouldn't have made him the highest paid NBA coach, that they should have offered him more money. But there was a lot of other reasons why he turned it down. But you're feeling now the Lakers have this out, where they can comfortably hire certainly a good friend of LeBron James. They do this podcast together. And I don't want to take anything away from JJ Redick. I have no idea if he could coach or not, but I'm just wondering why guys like Mark Jackson, or, we probably could think of a few others, haven't, maybe gotten a call that I think would do well on the Lakers. So give us now. I set it up, but you would never say all that about yourself. You did. I mean, you had it nailed. What do you think? Where do you think the Lakers go from here?
Well, let me start out with this. Since 2011, when Phil Jackson left, they've had 7 head coaches. The longest tenured one, well, let's see, based on number of games, would have to be Luke Walton.
Wow.
The Lakers coach legend.
Yeah, they
ran right behind him is Frank Vogel. Well, actually,
yeah, they ran Luke Walton out of town, man.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden, he was a bum. That just didn't make sense to me. But go ahead.
Frank Vogel might have made it longer, but coaching in the pandemic with the shortened seasons there, that kind of affects it.
Right.
So if I'm a Dan Hurley, 6 years, $75 million was offered, which would have made him slightly higher paid than Monty Williams, who coached the Pistons to a lot of great losses this year.
Right. We like Monty Williams, but go ahead.
Yeah, we like him.
Yeah.
But like, if you're trying to lure a guy out of, because okay, let me rewind. Dan Hurley is in the best situation of any college head coach right now.
Yeah.
He has a chance for a three-peat. And if you want to pull him out of that, you need to make him an offer that he can't refuse. Like, sound like the Godfather there.
Yeah.
But like, you really need to like blow him away with the offer. And also, if you look at it, is the Lakers' job that enticing? I mean, I know, yes, you get to coach arguably the greatest player of all time. Like some people would say him or Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And also another top 15 player of all time, or not of all time, but top 15 player right now in Anthony Davis. And then who else? And like, I think it's one of those places where there's a really high reward being the guy that coached LeBron James to his 5th ring, Anthony Davis to his 2nd ring, coaching a team that no one else thought could even make it to the NBA Finals to a championship would be great and amazing and awesome. And if you don't do it right away, you are going to be the first scapegoat. Not even like, oh, well, we'll give him a couple of years. Like, they would kick him out of town quickly.
Mm.
So I don't think Hurley was ever that thrilled on the job. I think it was more, let me hear you out, because if I kind of am flirting with going to the Lakers, maybe that can entice UConn to give me a lot more money, which I believe they did. Um, but also now the Lakers have the ultimate scapegoat. They're going to talk to the guy Borrego, I believe his name is,
Yeah,
for who
yeah,
has ties to Anthony Davis.
right.
I know also the Cavs are looking at potentially him. They might talk to a guy like Kenny Atkinson, but like, and you'd mentioned Jay Wright before. I think it was Colin Cowherd. He said like he actually talked to Jay Wright, and Jay Wright loves broadcasting and doesn't want to go
Yeah,
back into coaching right now.
I
So
would at least call him. I mean,
yeah,
but I see. I think also he probably he's very good at it actually. Too. But go ahead.
but yeah, so it just makes sense, and it just makes logical sense that JJ Redick's the guy. And if you wait until a couple days after the finals are over and you announce that he's the new head coach, you have your ultimate scapegoat. LeBron, probably in his last 2 or 3 years here in the NBA, um, they're going to say, oh, well, we had to draft Bronny James to make LeBron happy. So, and then if it's a disaster, JJ Redick gets fired 2 years from now. LeBron James is retired, and Anthony Davis is kind of the new guy here. But if this, I think the Lakers' issues go a lot deeper than their head coaching. Um, they don't have a deep roster aside from their top two.
Mm,
And I think if they truly want to take that next step, like, who is their third best player? Austin Reeves? I
yeah,
mean, that's not going to get you a title, especially get you
D'Angelo
through the
Russell.
Western
Yeah,
Conference.
yeah,
D'Angelo Russell,
yeah,
like, yeah, they need like a complete overhauled roster, and I don't know if they can even do that right now. They
yeah,
need like a few more years in the draft. They don't own a lot of their draft picks because of the Anthony Davis trade. So I don't know. They're kind of stuck.
yeah. I mean, I thought that Darvin Ham got a lot out of them last year. I know they got swept. Um, I'm sorry, they lost in 5 games, right, to Denver. Um,
Yeah,
but they did win 45 games, which is 5 less than the Knicks. So I think he got a lot out of what I agree with you. I think their roster is just very disjointed, and I'm shocked that they haven't traded or signed another top tier player. I think, listen, Dan Hurley, I'll just tell you what he said. It was just all family that kept him there. And he said that the timing was way off because they already have had practices. He's got his team at UConn. They've already had practices and everything. They're already preparing for the season. He said, to jump now would have been, crazy. It wasn't that, and he did say he was very open. He said, I'd like to coach in the NBA one day. He said, but it's not the time. He's focused on winning a third championship, which, I mean, would anybody, bet against him? In that team, he's going to put together a really good team. And he said the other thing, and he might have named a player and I forgot, but there was one player that committed to the NBA, committed to the draft, and then changed his mind and went back to UConn. And so he said even that he would, at this late date now to look that player in the eye and say, well, I'm going to the NBA now because it's too late to go to the draft, now. So I think the stars weren't aligned. I think that, I forgot who it was that said this. Maybe it was Mike Wilbon said they wouldn't, if they really wanted him, they wouldn't have let him leave LA without, signing a contract. Okay, yeah, go back home and think about it. It would have been an offer just totally blown away. It was almost a little bit lukewarm, but that was your whole point. Um, I could think of the coach that your guys there in Cleveland just fired would probably, bring at least some pedigree to the Lakers. I mean, why not even be talking to him? I mean, there's several, I think, out there if we really thought about it. Mark Jackson to me is the guy that it's a head scratcher for me why you wouldn't call him. Um, and maybe the Charlotte assistant. I mean, Charlotte just hasn't had much success to be for me to say, okay, their assistant coach is going to make a great head coach. I mean, I don't know. That's just me, but um, it's an odd situation. We have always, like, from the time you and I went to see Duke in Oklahoma in Madison Square Garden, and JJ Redick at Duke was just lighting it up. and every time he got the ball, the crowd was going crazy. I've always liked JJ Redick, and I like him here on the NBA Finals. Or calling NBA games. I think he's done a really, really good job. You don't think so? No.
I mean, he's okay,
Yeah.
but Mike Breen, Mark Jackson
Oh,
were the best.
come on. You should have never broke that team up. I mean, with Van
Yeah,
Gundy, I mean, come on.
and Van Gundy. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, and they did it for so long and they was so good at it, you know. But I would say Doris Burke, I've always liked her. She's been good. And Reddick, I think, has been good. I mean, nothing's going to compare. You know, see, NBC is going to be smart. They'll probably hire, you know, if not both, one of those guys. I think Van Gundy now is getting an expanded role with the Celtics. But, you know, anyway, you you had it called and you did a great job with that. It's going to be fascinating now to me to see which direction the Lakers go in. You know, but Dan Hurley's dad, his mother-in-law, and his wife and his kids didn't want him to go, didn't want to move to LA, you know. Mm. He
I don't
said,
blame him. The traffic's awful.
well, he's an East Coast guy, man. He could write his own ticket in another year or two. I mean, he's only 51, so you know, he has plenty of time, you know, to go you know, to the NBA. Kenny, I want to shift and stay in basketball with the Lakers, and I'll be relatively quick. But Jerry West was fascinating. But I want to pause here because Jerry West is kind of from my generation, and I want to pause to find out what you know about Jerry West. What I know, you know, he's the logo, although they've never admitted that. The guy does admit it now, or he admitted it a few years ago. And he's very uncomfortable with that. But I think that I've got some interesting things about his career that I'm sure you may not know. But what's your thoughts on Jerry West?
Uh, well, yeah. I mean, you said it. The logo is like definitely the first thing I think of. Um, but also like I think of him as not just a great player, but also a great executive.
Yeah,
Being the architect of a lot of really good NBA
yeah,
teams like the Showtime Lakers and all that stuff.
yeah,
Um, so like I think he's one of those that you hear of a lot. Because I mean, we could talk a little bit about some of the best uh, players that were also good coaches.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
we talked a little bit about it, the Mavs one and how Jason Kidd would fare
Jason
in there.
Kidd. Yeah, yeah,
Um, or even in baseball, like a lot of times the best players aren't necessarily good managers.
right, right,
Um,
right, right. Yeah,
but I feel like he probably was one that made both of those,
yeah,
especially when you look at like Michael Jordan and how horrible he was as an executive and
yeah,
as an owner.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just, I
yeah.
think there's so much of NBA history that he was at least a part of that it makes sense also that he is the logo.
For so long. And you know, I didn't know if he was sick, or it really hasn't been much information on how he died. And that's not too surprising because he was 86, you know. But it seemed to me like he was still always working. Like you always saw him in a suit and working. So let me run down his career here real quick. His other nickname was Mr. Clutch. They didn't keep the stats on game-winning shots, you know, back in the 60s and through most of the 70s. But one thinks that he may have probably had more game-winning shots than a lot of people said. Here's as a player, I'm gonna start here with just want to start with what Walt Frazier said a few years ago about him. He said that he was the perfect player, that he could shoot, he could jump, he was fearless, and he played great defense, that he had all of the tools of a great player. And Clyde has said this on several broadcasts that there were two players that he hated to play against. The second one was John Havlicek, and the first was Jerry West. He said that the battles they had were unbelievable. And I sent you the highlight of one of them of that All-Star game that I remember watching as a kid, and it was probably 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm still up as an 11-year-old. And the best player, the best defensive player in the league, guarding the best player, and you heard Bill Russell call. He said that's going to be 2 points, and sure enough, he drains it to win the All-Star game. You know. And then I showed you, I sent you also when he hit that shot in the 1970 finals that the Knicks eventually won for their first title. And, you know, he hit it from well beyond half court. And, but the Knicks won that game in overtime. Jerry West ran into some bad luck through a good part of his career, right? So he went to West Virginia and he took them to the championship game 1959. They lost to Cal 71 to 70. And he had 28 points and 11 rebounds in that game. He like carried them. But another, and there was a few other players that have done this, but he was also the Final Four MVP that year on a losing team. He did, he was the co-captain with Oscar Robertson, the 1960 Olympics. They won the gold then. But then I told you this, throughout the 60s, they got to the finals a lot, the Lakers, and they kept losing to the Celtics. They were 0-6 in the finals to the Celtics. So he was in a weird era where the Lakers had Elgin Baylor, and then the Lakers make the big trade in the late 60s for Will Chamberlain, but they still couldn't get past the Celtics and Bill Russell and John Havlicek and all those guys. Then, though, he is on the 71-72 Lakers, who win 33 in a row, and they go on to win the title against our Knicks. I always tell you about game one. The Knicks came out and smoked them, and I was like, Knicks might win this, man. Come on. The Lakers were like crazy favorites. But then the Lakers won the next four, swept them after that. After he retired, he coached the Lakers for 3 years and they got to the playoffs. They were okay, but it was that era where they traded for Kareem Jabbar. And similar, we've seen this a couple of times with James Harden, the Knicks with Carmelo. The Lakers wiped their team out. They traded half their team to the Bucks, to get Kareem, and they were just okay in that era. So he steps aside as coach. He becomes the GM. He hires a guy named Jack McKinney, who's a very good coach, but he has a horrible bike accident. And they hire a guy named Paul Westhead. And Paul Westhead leads them to the championship in Magic Johnson's first year, 1980. They beat the 76ers in 6 games. And 76ers with Dr. J and a few other great players. But then Magic doesn't like the way things are going the next year. And this is a little blemish on Magic's record. He goes as a player, he goes to Jerry West. And this was where they think was the era where it started to turn. He goes to Jerry West and says, it's either him or me. I don't like Westhead. He yells at the players, he abuses us, everything like that. Jerry West caved in and he fired, Paul Westhead, but he hires Pat Riley as the coach, and the rest is history. So West presides over this Laker team in the 80s that wins 5 championships. They go to the finals almost every year in the 80s, and they win 5 of them. And so it's amazing. He drafts James Worthy. He obviously drafted Magic. I mean, he has just this Midas touch as a GM. And then, he retools, and in 96, he pulls off the draft day trade for Kobe Bryant. Kobe was drafted by Charlotte, but his people had put out there that he didn't want to play there. And West goes in, the Nets almost got him, but he goes in and he snatches Kobe Bryant because he shows him a Laker jersey. And Kobe says, I'm only going to play now for the Lakers. And he pulls off the trade for Vlade Divac. He trades him to Charlotte along with a couple of draft picks. Kenny, a few days later, he signs Shaquille O'Neal from Orlando. I mean, and it's amazing. He knew Shaquille O'Neal wanted to make movies and everything like that. And so he has this incredible run, but he's not there for all of it. The Lakers in the early thousands three-peat, but he's there for the one. But then he wants to challenge and he leaves the Lakers. And he leaves the Lakers and he goes to Memphis. And we're like scratching our head. Why is Jerry West going to be the GM at Memphis? And he just said he needed a different challenge. He had been a Laker his whole life since the 60s. So over 40 years he's there. The first thing he does is he calls up Hugh B. Brown, who hadn't coached in years. And he says, do you want to come and coach Memphis? And ever since then, Memphis has been credible. I mean, they were a terrible team this year, but for the most part, they've been competitive. He drafts Pau Gasol. He trades for Jason Williams, a guy named James Posey. And they put together a good team under, they didn't get a championship, but they were in the playoffs like every year under Hugh B. Brown. Then, he goes to Golden State and he in 2015. And he's a consultant, but they said he had a lot more, pulled a lot of strings behind the scenes with Golden State. And for the last several years now, he's been with the Clippers. And so that's why I was surprised that even though he's 86, that he died, because I'm like, the guy's always working, you know? He's has just an unbelievable resume for so long. When you think about coming into the NBA in 1960 and still working in 2024, up until the time he dies and successful. I mean, I don't know how much credit people will give him for those Golden State teams, but as I was reading this week, he had a bigger hand than most people thought, and he really was trying to rebuild his Clippers team. He was very instrumental in signing Kawhi Leonard, and even though that hasn't worked out great, Kawhi was a great catch. I mean, coming off winning a championship, in Toronto, he was one of the best players in the league. So, I mean, he definitely has tried. It's a big loss for the NBA. He's 86 years old. The NBA has seen some big losses in the last year with Bill Russell and Bill Walton and now Jerry West. So anyway, I'm sure there was a few things there that you didn't know. I don't know if you had any comments.
No, I mean you said it perfectly. So I'd seen something that I thought was interesting. That the best player that's never won MVP, because he never won MVP, right?
No, he never won the MVP. He won the finals. He won the finals MVP. Actually, I believe he won the finals MVP when the Lakers finally won when they beat the Knicks. But he never won the in-season MVP. That's probably well, I mean, again, you think he was in a hard luck era. It was the Celtics and everybody else throughout the 60s, and even
Yeah.
parts of the early 70s. I mean, the Knicks to finally knock the Celtics off kind of, gave them a little bit of path to finally win the championship, but he's a great guy. Let's shift over to baseball. A lot of interesting things, I think, happening in baseball. And I don't know that I want to start with Why don't we start with Yankees Dodgers? Because that was a big time. I didn't get to see I didn't see hardly, I don't think any of the Saturday Mets Phillies London series game, and I listened to most of the second game and saw the ninth inning rally, which I liked, with them. But I gotta say, it was Yankees Dodgers. That was a great series. I really didn't see much of it except for Sunday night. I watched a good part of it. But that was like a postseason series. Place was rocking, totally sold out. Give me your take. I know the Yankees lost the first two games, but give me your take on Yankees Dodgers and just overall on where the Yankees are at right now.
Yeah, I mean, playoff atmosphere was right. Like the star power was there. I said it from the beginning of the year. I'll say it now. I think baseball would love having Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series.
Oh,
There are just way too many
oh,
storylines there.
that way it
Um,
won't get a 8 million or something like that, whatever it did last year. I can tell you that it'll triple that if it's Yankees.
yeah,
Yeah,
like imagine the story though, like Shohei Ohtani trying to win a title in his
yeah,
first year in
yeah,
Dodger blue. Mookie trying to win his third ring. Freddie Freeman trying to get one. Aaron Judge trying to get his first title as Yankees captain. Juan Soto, is he going to stay this year, past this year or not? Like, it's all there.
yeah.
But speaking of Juan Soto, you really look at it, the Yankees offense, they spanked the Royals this week. They took 3 out of 4, and also, except for today, like none of the games are really that close.
Yeah.
Um,
Hitting home
and
runs
even
all over the
today,
place. Yeah.
yeah.
Over the
Um,
waterfall, over I saw Stanton's home runs. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
This is still true. Stanton, Soto, and Judge are combined. I don't know what the total is. Like, I want to say it's like 56 or something like that. Their combined home run total is still more than 6 teams in Major League Baseball
Amazing.
right now.
That's
Like
amazing.
they've been on fire. But you really saw the loss of Soto and how it
Oh
definitely
yeah.
changed the complexion of the lineup.
Yeah.
Um, Now, not my full blown inspiration story, but the story of Trent Grisham to me is
Oh,
very, very interesting.
yeah.
Because, like, okay, he's batting under 100, and he's kind of like you don't care that he's batting under 100 because he's kind of only there a couple days a week when Judge is playing. But then when Soto goes down with the injury, he becomes kind of the everyday center fielder. So I think it's a combination of guy wasn't really playing that much, and now that he has actual reps, he did something because he had a big hit today too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but them chanting "We want Soto" and then him hitting the game-winning 3-run home run is absolutely tremendous, and I'm happy for him.
That
Um,
was amazing. Amazing.
but like this was one of those. Yes, the Yankees lost the series, but I don't feel too bad about it because they almost won in extra innings. They didn't have Soto, and Garrett Cole still has yet to throw a pitch this year, at least in the major league level.
When's he come
So
out?
he has a rehab assignment tomorrow,
Okay.
and they haven't directly said that because that's kind of the Yankee way. If all goes well, he might be making his first start next week against Baltimore. That kind of seems to be the lineup, which would be absolutely tremendous. Um, so when it comes to the Dodgers, I think it's a team that the Yankees could still beat. This upcoming week to me is going to be one of the biggest tests for me of the season because they have Baltimore and then they have Atlanta. I know you'd said Atlanta's struggling, but
Yeah.
still they
Yeah.
have a
We'll get
good
to Braves
team.
in a second. Yeah.
Um, so I think if they could go 4-2 next week, I think that would make me feel pretty comfortable about where they are.
Yeah.
Because right now in the American League, you got the Yankees, you got the Orioles, and then and the Guardians. I'll give love to the Guardians there, and then a whole bunch of mediocre teams.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh gosh, I'm gonna pull this up here because this surprised me because I haven't looked at the standings this closely. So you had said Yankees are up 2.5 on Baltimore.
Yes.
The Red Sox are in third place at 500, 13 and a half games back,
Yeah.
and it's only mid-June.
Yeah.
So I think like it's just a two-team race, but also winning the division means so much now, especially if you're going to be the one or
Oh,
the two seed.
oh yeah. With the wild card. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
they got to keep the foot on the pedal. I think having Garrett Cole back will kind of give everyone an extra boost. This offense has been just continuing to click on all cylinders. Um, Jason Dominguez is back and healthy, but now he's in AAA because there's no spot
Yeah,
for him.
where's he gonna play? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um,
He'll be
I
ready if
think
somebody
that's
gets
really
hurt.
good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he'll be right up here the second that anyone gets injured. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but um, and also Judge is continues to just mash the ball.
Oh,
Um,
he's
he
having an
is
MVP season again.
yeah. Um, he is slugging over 700 right now.
Oh,
The last guy to do that was '04 Barry Bonds.
wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, it's
Wow.
ridiculous.
Let me go back, ask you one question from the Dodgers series, and I'll make a quick point about Trent Grisham. Will Teoscar Hernandez, will he be kind of their best signing? I mean, that guy, he likes the bright lights every time in the postseason with the
I can't
Jays.
stand him.
I know. You know, he's batting 262. He's got 17 homers and 50 RBIs. So on a team where you've got Betts, Freeman, Shohei, I mean, this guy arguably might be their best signing in the offseason. I don't want to take anything away from Shohei, and their pitcher has been great, but I mean, he's on pace for over 30 homers and over 100 RBIs. I think I think that was great. I mean, that signing. Um, Aaron Judge. I mean, let me pull up his stats real quick. So he's batting 302, 25 homers, 62 RBI. I don't like the 62 RBIs, but listen, that's still a pace for like 120, 130 RBIs. Um, what's been the difference with him this year? Healthy, or is it just health? Because he looks different to me this year. He's hitting everything.
Yeah, I think health is a factor
Yeah.
because obviously, like last year with the even before like the toe injury, take that Dodgers, we made it past the series without you taking out our best player.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That was last year this time. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I think that he was already kind of on a very crazy pace as it was last year, but it really got overshadowed because he got hurt. Um, but I think it's not just the health, but also having Juan Soto hitting ahead of him. That's not to say that they're pitching around Soto, because I don't think they are. Soto's just that good at seeing the plate. And I think Boone has done a good job of doing the order the way that he has,
Yeah.
with Volpe 1, Soto 2, and Judge 3.
Yeah.
Um, so I think like I feel like in years past, Aaron Judge has felt like he had to do everything. And in 2022, he literally did everything.
Yeah.
But now that he doesn't have that, and also guys behind them are still kind of hitting. Verdugo has been really nice behind him. Stanton has been pretty good this year. Rizzo, not as much, but we can
Well,
talk
yeah.
about that another time. But
Yeah. Yeah. Rizzo will
um,
be okay. He'll be, as long as
yeah,
he stays healthy, he'll be okay.
so
Um,
I think that that's really helped too.
yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Wow. He's been great. I want to make a quick point, because I think I'm going to make a quick comparison. The Mets, last week or almost 2 weeks ago, designated for assignment Omar Narvaez. They signed him last year, early last year, pretty decent contract. Um, he's a two-time All-Star. And when they signed him, I'm like, okay, now you got at least a bat behind the plate, him and Tomas Nido. Well, he gets hurt very early last year, and uh, Alvarez comes up. Alvarez is going to get most of the plate appearances after he came up, and he did so well. When Narvaez came back, he just never got it going. And he never got it going this year either, even though he got a chance when Alvarez got hurt. Um, I mean, he was batting like 150. He had his first base hit at Citi Field this year, right in the game before he got DFA'd. Um, but here's, Keith Hernandez brought up this point, and I think it's relevant with Grisham as well. He said it's brutally hard, to go from being an everyday player like Narvaez was with the Brewers, um, to them being a backup player. And Grisham was an everyday player with the Padres, and now being a backup player with the Yankees. I think it just takes some time, to really get acclimated to not playing every day after you played every day for X amount of years. Both those guys are veterans, and played every day for several years. What do you think about that?
I mean, that would make sense because
Yeah.
like it is really hard to kind of make that adjustment.
Yeah.
Um, because like when you're, especially if you're an everyday outfielder, you know when you're where you're gonna hit in the lineup, you know where you're gonna play, and you get to that routine. But then you become a bench player and you're playing 1 or 2 times a week. Your routine is just be ready for those 1 or 2 times.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes, and the Yankees don't really do it that much. Sometimes you might get a pinch running appearance here and there,
Yeah.
but it's like
Yeah.
it's definitely not the same.
It's different with the
Um,
DH now too, in both leagues.
yeah,
Pinch hitting is a little bit less. The Yankees were the masters at that, back in the run in the 70s and the run in the 90s. I'll just name them real quick, and then I want to get your take on the Guardians. Um, Cecil Fielder, Ruben Sierra, Darryl Strawberry, Tim Raines, Charlie Hayes, even Wade Boggs. I mean, all these guys knew their roles, coming off the bench, and these guys were stars in other places. And they didn't play every day, but they probably played a little bit more back then because you had the double switches a lot more. You had a lot more pinch hitting stuff, but they stayed ready. But I think there's an art to that today because the game is different than it was even in the 90s like that or early thousands. Um, Listen, the Guardians are 43 and 23. I think they're for real. Give us an update. Who else on that team is tearing it up aside from Ramirez? I mean, everybody knows Jose Ramirez. You know why? Because everybody keeps saying he's the most underrated player in baseball. No, he's not anymore. Everybody knows he's a star. He's a big time player. But obviously, the Guardians, man, their pitching has been great as well. So give us a insider's view there of the Guardians. What's making them so good aside from their new manager, which he's been great.
yeah. Before that, I want to give a quick Aaron Judge stat.
Yeah.
Okay, so on May 2nd, he was batting 197.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
Um, yeah. So
May
since
2nd.
that moment,
Wow.
yeah. So like basically a month and change. Since May 2nd, he is batting 406 with a 525 on base percentage.
It's amazing.
It's
He's locked
37
in.
games,
Yeah.
19 home runs. So
He's locked in. I'll say this last thing. What I see is that the rest of the team is feeding off of him.
Yeah,
He's locked in. I know Soto we thought was the guy, and he is. But it's that team revolves around Judge. He's the leader of that team. As he goes, I think that team goes, and it's fun to watch. It really is. All right, Guardians, talk to us.
all right. So obviously, I'll just rattle off Jose Ramirez's numbers. Obviously, he should start third base
Oh, yeah.
easily. He's batting 273, 18 home runs, 62 RBIs,
Wow.
and also 11 stolen bases. So he's
Yeah.
well on his way to a 2020, potentially 30-30 season.
Yeah.
Um, the other guy, and I feel like we talk about the most underrated players. He might be the most underrated first baseman in the league, and that's Josh Naylor.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
he's batting 226, which isn't great, but he has 17 home runs and 50 RBIs.
Yeah, he's a great
Um,
fielder too. Left-handed,
yeah.
traditional left-handed first baseman. Yeah.
A few others that I want to point out. A guy that I see get a lot of love here is David Fry, who he missed a few games. He had, I think he started the year on the IL or like an early IL stint. He's batting 321 with
Wow.
8 home runs and 30 RBIs, and that's in 48 games. So,
Yeah.
like, significantly less at bats, but he's had a lot of really clutch at bats.
Yeah.
Um, and then last one I'll point out, just because this might rub a little bit of salt into the wound. I'm very sorry. Andres Jimenez, batting 262, 4 home runs, 34 RBIs, 10 stolen bases.
He's a
Um,
good player, man.
yeah, and
I'd
also
still
a
make that
great
trade
defender too.
though. Yeah.
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 Um, the other guy too, Stephen Kwan, is batting 380. But that's only in 40 games. He had a
Hurt.
long IL
Right?
stint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a good
Um,
player too, though.
and really like, so I didn't realize this until I looked it up earlier. The Guardians, as a team, have 73 home runs. That is 11th in all of Major League Baseball.
Yeah. So they're not tearing up the home runs necessarily, but they're scoring runs.
Yeah,
Um,
that's sixth in the American League.
okay. All right. So they're
So
doing well. They're better than average.
yeah,
Tell me the stats on your closer, because I think your closer is the best in baseball.
that's where I was gonna lead this to,
Yeah.
because I think like seeing them up close a few times, basically once you get to the end of a game, the game is over. Because also some of their setup guys are really good, but Emmanuel Clase, um, he's 3-1. Three, like, records don't matter as a closer. But he has an 0.84 ERA. He has appeared in 33 games. He's saved 20 out of 23. He has given up just 19 hits in 31 or 32 and a third innings. So like
How many strikeouts?
almost a hit per, or less than like a half a hit per nine. Strikeouts 34 and 32 and a third.
Wow.
So he's at
Yeah.
over 9 per 9 innings.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And also he's only given up 3 walks all year.
Yeah. 3 walks.
Um,
You
so
use him.
I
Yeah.
I totally agree that I think he is the best
Oh yeah.
closer in baseball right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and let's see if I can rattle off a few other of these guys. Like Scott Barlow, 2-2, 3.67. Cade Smith, he's appeared in 29 games, 1.78 ERA.
They've got a good bullpen. Yeah.
And that guy, Cade Smith, 40 strikeouts in 30 innings so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
Um,
He was nasty against the Mets. You
yeah.
know?
So I
It's a good
think
team, man. Yeah.
it's a really overall, like a well-rounded team. I texted you. I'd still go for it right now. I mean, are we gonna get some love for Stephen Vogt as manager of the year? I mean, he took over a team that had their manager as the longest tenured manager in baseball, if I'm not mistaken.
Hall of Fame manager he took over for, which makes it even more difficult.
And they're doing better than they did last year.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they needed a change though. it's hard to say that, when guys like him and Francona and Joe Torre and guys that's been around for a long time, when they finally, leave, it's tough to say. Maybe they just needed a different voice, and maybe they did. I'm sure Vogt is more of a, yeah. I mean, looks like, it seemed to me like this last week he was playing, Um, so he's a young guy. I wanted to get your take on the Braves there. They're now down by 10 games in the East. I mean, part of that is the Phillies just playing so well. Um, it'll be interesting to see when the Phillies play the Yankees. That one I want to see as well. I think and you said the Braves are playing the Yankees coming up here. Um, I mean, I think that the Braves really missed their pitchers that are hurt as well. But Acuna Jr. going down, I didn't think it would impact him this much, but it seems to have. And all of them seem to go into a slump right at the same time. Matt Olson's not hitting well. Ozuna cooled off. Um, what do you make of the Braves being only 5 games over 500?
Yeah, I don't know. It is weird because you would think Acuna going down wouldn't hurt them as much because they literally won the World Series the last time this
Yeah,
exact injury happened.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think it is a combination of that as well as missing the key pitchers, like especially Spencer Strider,
It's a Strider, yeah,
who
yeah,
was like he was kind of I wouldn't say a low key dark horse to win Cy Young, but he was definitely up there.
oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and part of it too, Matt Olson hit what 54 home runs last year.
yeah, yeah,
Um, obviously he's not doing that again. Um, but like you look at it, let me pull up the standings here real quick.
yeah.
Um, the Braves still would be in the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Well, I'll get to the Mets in a
so
second. That's yeah,
so like I think because of where they are, like because we had expectations so high, and they added Chris Sale, and Chris Sale has been amazing. Which like where would they be without him right now?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I think because expectations were so high, it seems like they're underachieving. But
Yep.
you still like we've seen it so many times since we've done the new format.
Yeah.
It's very easy to rattle off a magical run
Oh
by
yeah.
being like
Yeah.
a 90 win team in the wild card.
Yeah. That's why it's way too early to be talking about, trade deadline and, Matt Olson's batting 245, if you can believe it, with only 10 homers and 37 RBIs. So they're in right there. You have him slumping, and I know Ozzy Albies, I know, was hurt for a while. I know he's back. Um, Austin Riley is just doing okay. So I mean that team might be in trouble. I'm with you though. I don't see any scenario where they don't make the playoffs, but I thought they'd go toe to toe with the Phils, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Real quick, I'll give you two other quick things. The Mariners are all of a sudden 6.5 games up on the struggling Texas Rangers, who might get Max Scherzer back in another couple of weeks, I think I read. But DeGrom is still looking at like August to come back. Speaking of slumping sluggers, Odalis Garcia. Now he has 13 homers, 40 RBIs. He's only batting 211. He's won for his last
Oof.
18, and I think two for his last 40. So, and he's their big boy. So he's slumping. Maybe the Mets get Texas at the right time because the Mets play Texas next week. What are you thinking of the Mariners, man?
I can't. I don't know why the Mariners are as good as they are.
They're
Like,
pitching, I think. They're starting pitching.
yeah, their pitching is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that division is one that we thought would be a lot better.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know
Yeah.
my amazing hot take about the Angels being good has gone really well. Um, but
They're
but the
better than
rest of
last
the
year.
division,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they're better than last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but still the Astros still haven't kicked it off.
Still shocking to
Um,
me that the Astros are that bad.
yeah, and for
Yeah.
me, I won't count the Astros out until they're mathematically eliminated
Yeah, no, I
from
know.
playoff contention.
I know.
But
Yeah.
back to the Mariners, I feel like you're getting a good start from J Rod,
Yeah.
and I think that's good. Like he's kind of one of the key guys, but I think they're continuing that momentum that they had last year
Yeah.
because they were like the last team eliminated,
Yeah.
and I think that there's something to that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean they also have a great rotation, so
Yeah, Castillo, Kirby, they're really good. I don't think it's a fluke. I think they're going to take that division. But Texas, they're the champs. They might get hot. Them and the Diamondbacks still, struggling a little bit. All right, last thing for me is I'll give you my quick take on the Mets. They're playing much better, but they're still 8 games under 500. See, when you get, the under 500, you have to go on a 7, 8, game winning streak at least. And the starting pitching has still been good, but they still don't go much more than 5 innings. While the bullpen has been a lot better. Edwin Diaz comes back today, so we'll see. They need him to be Edwin Diaz. Jeff McNeil and Brandon Nimmo continue to struggle. Nimmo, in fact, was benched last night, same because of the left-hander, but Nimmo always plays against left-handers. Um, McNeil, I mean, you have now Iglesias on the team, so he's been playing great, and McNeil not so much. I don't know what to do with more with McNeil than with Nimmo. I could see I don't think Nemo's gonna I think Nemo will snap out of it. With McNeil, this is a continuation, even though he wound up at 270 last year, it was more like the last, 3 weeks of the season. Most of the season he was like he is right now. I mean, both of those guys are still batting 220. Lindor picked it up since they put him in the leadoff spot, especially. I mean, he talked about Judge. Yeah, it's not quite as dramatic, but a few weeks ago he was hitting 180, and now he's like hitting 240 and change. So he's definitely brought it up, and he's hitting seems like every night. I still don't know what to make of the Mets, to be honest with you. Could they get hot and rattle off 10 games? I think they have the talent to do that. It's just hard to see. Kodai Senga is still probably after the All-Star break at the earliest, coming back. So if he pitches at all this year. So I don't know. I don't think that I think with all that said, they're only like 2.5 or 3 games out of the wild card. So I think that Cohen, since he did it last year, might wait till the very last minute to do it this year. We already talked about this. The Mets have a lot of guys on 1-year contracts. Somebody will take JD Martinez. Somebody will take Pete Alonso. Somebody will take Luis Severino. Somebody will take Sean Manaea. I could probably know Harrison Bader. Somebody will take Tyrone Taylor. Somebody will take, all these guys that they just signed for the 1 year or so. They'd be going in a heartbeat if the Mets pull the trigger, because especially Severino, I think even more than Alonso and Martinez would be the first to go, because he's, like I said, he's pitched great. I think he's pitching tonight, but he's been everything and more. I know you don't like to hear that, but not that you guys would need him. I mean, come on, you guys. Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's get ready to wrap up. This is the first time for me in a long time, and I apologize. I don't really have an inspiration tonight, so I'm gonna just turn it right over to you.
all right, so I got two real quick. One is more of a sometimes a change of scenery is nice. So Michael Tonkin,
Oh,
as Aaron Boone called him, the Tonk Man. So he has been excellent. He actually saved was that Monday? I think it was Monday night. He came in for the save. Clay Holmes had pitched a couple nights previous, um, so he listened to his stats in 14 games here. He has a .89 ERA. He's thrown 20 in the third innings. He's given up just 12 hits and 19 strikeouts.
wow.
Um,
Wow.
so previously he was with both the Mets and made literally one appearance for the Twins. With the Mets, he had a 5.14 ERA in 5 games. Gave up 10 runs in 7 innings. That doesn't seem right.
They
And then
DFA'd
also,
him twice.
yeah, they DFA'd him twice.
And the Twins DFA'd him too.
Yeah. And previously, so he started in 2013, was with the Twins for 5 years, and then went to play overseas. Also played in Mexico independently.
With the
Came
Braves
back
last year, though, right? Yeah.
with the Braves last year,
Yeah.
and so like he had a rough go this year, but now he's found a spot and he's killing it. So good for him. But what I really want to
Absolutely.
talk about
Yeah. Good for him is right.
um, is a reel I saw. So the London series. I didn't really watch that much of it. I'm still kind of out on the London series. I feel like it's just weird timing. And I really hate how every 2 minutes I have to say over the pond. Like, stop, please. Um, so and like still baseball isn't that big in Britain. It's more cricket than baseball, and it's more soccer than probably either.
Bryce
Anyhow,
Harper. Yeah, absolutely. Doing the soccer
um,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, like it's just I don't know. Like the international stuff, I understand why leagues are doing it, and I think it makes sense for some. London still seems kind of weird, but it gave me this really cool reel. Um, they went on the streets and they were asking people like, um, "Do you want this baseball or do you want $1,000?" So this little boy, and I'll send you the reel after we get off here. This little boy decides to take the baseball. He says, "I love baseball. I've loved it ever since I was in the hospital diagnosed with type 1 diabetes
Oh,
and was able to watch it. And I'm a huge Phillies fan." So they give him baseball, and then in an envelope, it gives him 2 tickets to not just to go to the London series game, but to meet the players on the
wow.
field.
Wow.
So this like little 9, 10-year-old boy, this little British 9, 10-year-old boy is going and like shaking the hands of like Bryce Harper and Trey Turner. He's a huge Trey Turner fan, so like he gets
Wow.
like really excited, and
Wow.
it's just like a fun story.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I said before, I'm not really sold on the London series, but I did like that. I thought that was a really cool moment to kind of give this kid one of his dreams. And he also did say like his dream is to play like for the Phillies when he grows up. So
Wow. Okay. There you go. No, that's pretty cool. I can't wait to see it. Um, do you know Michael Kay did the Sunday game? It was just really odd when he does a Met game. You know, he did the Sunday on ESPN. It was him
yeah,
and Tim Kirchin, and I'm forgetting the Phillies player, ex-Philly, ex-Cub. He's actually pretty good at announcing. But Adam
John
Wainwright,
Kruk.
no, not John Kruk. Not John Kruk. He's relatively recently retired. He was with them for a few. It'll come to me later. I don't know why I can't. African American outfielder. Um, anyway, the Adam Wainwright I like, but oh my gosh, he's gotten John Schmaltz disease. He's got to analyze every single pitch. And AJ Brzezinski never shuts up either. You know, and we love our friend Larry who always says, "Let the game breathe." But with those two guys, forget it. They were analyzing, they overanalyze. So does John Schmaltz. And John Schmaltz wasn't always like that. And I know he's not your favorite, but you
John
know,
Smoltz just like loves to hate on the Yankees. Like, I'm
yeah,
sorry that we beat you twice in the World Series. Like, get
yeah,
over it. It
yeah.
happened 25 years
Well, listen, this has been a good show. Lots going on. We'll have an NBA champion, I think, probably tomorrow, but certainly by the time we do our next show. And we'll probably have an NHL champion too. I think both these series are going to be over. The Stanley Cup final, not the Stanley Cup finals. And I still have no idea why I looked that up and I still didn't understand why it's the final and not the finals. And I don't remember. It had to be just a couple of years ago that they changed that. I know when I was a kid, it was the finals, Stanley Cup finals. I don't get it. But anyway, I now I got to look up who the other announcer was. It's on the tip of my tongue too.
It's not Doug Glanville, right?
Doug
No,
Glanville.
that's
There
not
you
it.
go.
Oh,
Thank
it
you.
is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's pretty good, actually. Pretty good. Dontrell Willis has grown on me a little bit. He's doing more and more Fox games, and I think he's still doing the Apple Friday night game.
I
Yeah.
can't get on the.
I know you hate the Apple Friday night game.
Well, like, I don't have Apple TV Plus, and
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it
yeah.
just it kind of sounds like you and I could just commentate and we get the same quality.
Probably. Probably. All right. Ready to take us home?
Yeah, let's do it. Square Ben.
Kenny.
The Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys with a finals champion and a final champion next week.
Absolutely.